Hello everyone, welcome to Selene Apoptosis. Now, this was released by Viscom and Nupu Neko Dev, and also published by Nupu Neko Dev as well. Now, you might have seen this before, and you might be asking, I thought Flat Chest Dev made this. Well, they actually changed their name very recently to Nupu Neko Dev. So I'm sorry, I'm still getting used to it. Anyways, this was released on February 17th, and it's finally here. You know, it's quite been a while, and it's quite exciting to see it, finished and ready to go. Let me check the settings because I do read slightly faster, so let's bump that up. And I did already enable streamer mode to protect the channel. And let me take a look at the language settings. Let's see. Around English sound. Let's check the sound. Now, there's also the Japanese and English voice acting. I think right now I'm going to keep it on English because I quite enjoy Pixie Willow's work. But I will make a separate playlist for the Japanese version, but that won't have my narration though. So let's go ahead and start the game. The sound was driving him crazy. Monotonous, muffled thuds were resonating throughout his head with dull pain. The pain wasn't too strong, nothing unbearable. But that sound, more than anything else, he wanted the sound to just stop. Thud. Nevertheless, the knocking sounds didn't end. He knew it well enough because he himself was their origin. Thud. 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 The nose of his slipper was hitting the rear of a desk over and over again, like a huge fluffy moth frantically ramming against the window glass. He wanted plenty of things. He wanted to pay the rent in time this month, not to displease his landlady again. He wanted to finish the script, at least in draft, because a draft is way better than nothing, something one can work with. And he wanted to sleep. No, not quite that. The problem, a serious one, was that he didn't really want to sleep. He leaned back in his chair and rubbed his shut eyes, pressing his eyeballs until dancing pale lights appeared. Of course, he took the sleeping pills. When a healthy 8-hour sleep gives way to a not-so-healthy 5-hour nap, then a 3-hour eye shut break, and then goes away entirely, you start thinking how this will impact your liver. You just want to sleep. You need to sleep, especially if you have already taken an advance payment for the first part of a gig. The goddamn text won't just write itself. However, if the text could, in fact, write itself somehow, he would probably lose his job. He didn't have any illusions in this regard. As soon as neural networks get smart enough, he and dozens of other ghostwriters will vanish into morning mist of a new era in literature. He didn't have much of a name or connections, only some skill and a knack to meet the deadlines for the most part. The client was content with this, and was content with the pay, so everything went well until the pills started failing him. Blam. This time the tick got too strong. His foot jerked and hit the board with very notable pain. Seemed like he even heard his toes crack. He muttered a short curse and rolled the chair away from the desk, although he knew, now that his attention was not fixed on the blank text file, the tick should go away all by itself. It's funny how the consciousness is detached from the body. He often thought about it, especially while having insomnia. It's like you're working as a team, but your partner starts pulling something. You seem to have common goals, but when all hell breaks loose, you are suddenly left alone with it, and your partner is more interested in watching the fire than fighting it. In the end, you have no idea what's on his mind. Well, at least there won't be any more knocking. Good. A small window at the far side of the room flashed white for a moment. A storm? Now that he thought about it, the day was hot. The viscous, stagnant air still filled the room. This, and the barely audible squeak of an overheated network filter, became sensitive to such things when he couldn't sleep for a long time. Made the entire room seemed to vibrate a little. Like a cocoon that's about to hatch. Actually, that did sound like a good line. He rolled back to the table and was about to write that thought down. A pause over the keyboard. He remembered the individual words and the general idea, but the sentence had already slipped away. This time, the white light seemed to fill the entire room. Then a thunder followed, resembling a low gut roar of something large and famished. Good Lord. He called to God way too often for someone who never goes to church. Just the habit he inherited from his mother. A furious patter of raindrops pounding on his window. There's no way he could work like this. Not now. But maybe it's for the best. Since he was a little boy, he slept well during the storms. He had to seize the moment. He groped for a pack of sleeping pills. It's nice to have your working tools at hand. Popped the pills into his mouth, and opened the window to hear the steady patter of the rain. Then he went to the bed and collapsed on top of the bed sheets, his clothes still on. He could tell by the sound the water that flooded the windowsill was trickling down to the floor. He decided there was a small price to pay. He felt a pleasant chill of a cloth beneath his cheek. The wavering haze was gradually fading from the room. Yet the sleep did not come. He tried to take off his shoes, change position, take a pillow, cover himself, throw the pillow away to the other side of the room. Nothing helped. He just laid there with his eyes closed, and those closed eyelids felt heavy. He knew it was an illusion. All in vain. He's not sleeping. He can't sleep. Thud. At first, he thought he was imagining things. Thud. 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 Sometimes the knocking paused, but never stopped completely. The sound came from below, from the first floor. Someone was banging insistently on the door. And with each thud, he could feel the rage building up like a tight knot of pain around his stomach. He is trying to sleep. Is it really that hard to just leave a man alone? At least at night. At least in the house that he pays for. Specifically so that nobody would bother him. He opened his eyes, easy just as he thought, sprang to his feet and ran down the stairs. Something was boiling inside him. Halfway to the door, he took a turn to cupboard and pulled out an old baseball bat. He wasn't likely to actually use it. He asked himself if he would, as he reached for a door handle. No, he certainly wouldn't, but he's angry, and he wants the night guest to learn it. What the hell? The rain was still pouring, or rather it was actually getting stronger. As his mother would say, and the floodgates of heaven were open. His mother used to say a lot of things. That was on the list of reasons why he had to rent this overpriced house, where anyone could start banging the door in the middle of the night. A cat, for example. What the hell? He said it again, this time aloud. A cat was standing on his porch. She looked like a purebred British Shorthair in all respects, except for the color. Aside from the smoky gray head, it seemed as if she was dropped into a vat of white paint, while her lower part was dipped into a black one. Wet fur clung to her small, rather skinny body, dripping with water. The cat could have probably slipped into the house as soon as the door opened, but instead she froze, as if waiting for the host to say something. Let's let the cat in. It was cold outside, much colder than one might think. He didn't feel angry anymore. Alright, come in. He stepped aside, freeing the doorway. The cat didn't move. So, you don't want to, huh? He was about to say fine then, close the door, go back to the second floor, and lie in suffocating half-sleep until morning. But he finally realized what was wrong. The bat. He threw it away, aiming for the sofa, but missed. The bat clattered on the floorboards. The cat followed it into darkness with her round yellow eyes. The sounds didn't frighten her. He sighed. I won't hurt you. Come in if you want. The cat raised her eyes at him. For the first time he actually saw, and couldn't help admiring how big and yellow they were. The cat's pupils were also large and incredibly round, like two full moons in an eclipse. Just as he was about to close the door for the second time, the cat murmured something and fluttered into the house, butting him with her wet head as she passed by. He smiled. Strictly speaking, at this very moment his line had ended. If the landlady found out, and he was sure she would, he'd have to look for a new place to live. There are plenty of lonely, bored seniors in the neighborhood, he thought. And they only have two hobbies, observing and reporting. The subject and the recipient aren't that important. Well, it's fine. Maybe he'd leave the suburbs. Maybe he'd move to an apartment, since him getting privacy didn't work out anyway. The rain was getting stronger still. He closed the door. The cat explored the house with cautious curiosity, stopping by different objects as it tried to understand their purpose. Watching that was amusing, so amusing he even forgot about the stain. When he remembered, his howl already spread out. A dark spot of water in the place of the cat clung to him. He pulled the wet cloth away from his body and stared at it blankly for a moment, then almost groaned aloud. The cat was soaked, so she probably got a lot of dirt in the house. He decided not to turn on the light. He had enough disappointment for the night. Instead, he went to get a towel. "Alright, come here." The cat turned her head to the voice and froze in place. She was examining the TV, a lifeless black mirror plasma panel and a lacquer frame that he hadn't even touched since moving in. And the reflection of the cat herself looked black. She gave him a long and appraising look and then, with a sudden eagerness, trotted towards him, deftly avoiding the obstacles. He was surprised. Maybe the cat decided he was more interesting than a TV, or maybe she acted out of respect for her host's will. Anyway, he felt grateful. Finally, someone he can actually negotiate with. Suddenly he thought how nice it would be to crawl under the blanket with a warm ball of fur. It would surely have helped him to fall asleep. As a child, he had a cat. Gray, huge, brash, immensely ugly, and equally beloved. He often fell asleep hugging him. The cat's name was Timo, and he faded into a June night many years ago. The cat bumped her wet head against him once more. He thought that cats usually shake out the water themselves. Usually, but perhaps not always. "Hey, easy there, you're all wet." The cat looked up at him with moon-shaped eyes and murmured something again. "Do something about it then." He smiled and got to work. He had to squeeze the fur thoroughly so the towel soon turned into a wet rag. Should he? Let's give a bath. That won't do. I'll give you a bath. As he carried her to the bathroom, the cat stayed still in his arms, a warm and incredibly light body pressed against his chest. He was expecting the cat to bring out the claws any moment. Maybe as he opens the door. Now? Or as he turns the light on. Maybe this time? But nothing happened. The cat glanced around the new room and looked at him again with her intelligent, almost human-like gaze. Not a single muscle in her small body moved. She was curious, that's about it. She trusts me. He was about to ask her if she knows where they were and what was going to happen next, but that was just too much. So, it shouldn't be very difficult. Two of us can manage this. What do you think? He read somewhere a cat should get used to new surroundings before bathing. Fear is born out of the unknown, out of regard people haven't gone too far from cats. New scents, unfamiliar objects, and the splashing of water. These are just shadows under the bed that will fall back if you get a better look at them. He carefully put the cat on the floor. She looked around the room again and returned her questioning eyes to him. It seemed like she got comfortable enough. He turned on the water and showered and felt a gentle touch. The cat was already lording around his feet. She was curious indeed. The shower isn't so bad as compared to the rain, is it? The joke came out a little awkward. He felt embarrassed and he didn't know why. She's just a cat. Maybe it was because of how the water glistened on her skin, or how she was looking at him from under half-lowered lashes. She was actually watching. He met her eyes, and each time felt shame burn through him, but that shame was thick and sweet. He was a little dizzy. His hand slid over her smooth, wet skin. Each time he would ask himself, was it really necessary? Then he would feel her eyes on him. His thoughts would melt, running down her thighs with a ladder, disappearing between her neat toes. The bathroom shimmered, molten, bright, pulsating with light or darkness. He felt he was losing his balance and pulled his hand away. But she returned and pressed it to wet, hot skin, covered in a soapy veil. She guided it. He couldn't remember how he'd ended up in the living room again. The cat was napping peacefully in his arms. He absently ran his hand down the cat's wet back, tracing the bumps of her spine with his fingers. I should get you some food. Let me see what I have. He got up, just a tad bit difficulty, nothing he couldn't handle. Still, his body felt unusually heavy and unwieldy. He had to give the cat something to eat. He will lie down afterwards and then, hell, maybe he'll even fall asleep. Maybe he should have gotten a cat from much earlier. A ball of fur with a pair of moon eyes, a velvety voice that you can always negotiate with. That's about it. It's kind of funny. He could have avoided all that suffering if only he had a cat. The kitchen blurred before his eyes. He got to the refrigerator and opened it, squinting from the light and leaning on the door way harder than he was supposed to. The landlady was around at the time. Should have told him exactly so. Don't lean on the door. After all, this is her house and her refrigerator. And everything should be neat and tidy in case she has to move new tenants in. Perhaps the landlady would have even warned him about the milk. The milk itself is completely harmless, unless, of course, you're allergic to lactose. But there's a special kind of lactose-free milk, right? What matters is the bottle. Bottles, much like cats, can vary greatly, but this particular one was made of glass. If only the landlady was here, she would probably have told him not to touch the bottle, because he's falling on the floor, the bottle might break, and then the milk will spill, and we'll have nothing to feed the nice cat he found. Or rather, it's her who found him, and very timely, because he was lying on the floor. He had been lying there for some time. He would have been lying still if he hadn't felt the light touch of something hot and rough on his cheek. It's almost like a dream, although of course comparing sleep with fainting isn't quite correct, no matter how you look at it. The floor beneath him was surprisingly hard, cold, and wet. He felt all those three qualities clearly. He was afraid to imagine what would happen if he tried to move. But he had to move, one way or another. At least to see what's up, because something hot and rough was still sliding up his cheek, gradually creeping up to his ear. He felt a warm breath and then a cautious bite. Ouch! He jumped on the spot. A shower rushed to his side, and calmly began to lap milk from a puddle. Cat. What are you doing? The cat looked at him briefly and licked her lips.
No need to be this dramatic. You were lying around idly, and you're not even a cat, see? Besides, you're soaked in milk.
Well, you're right. I let you down and had to get my punishment. I let myself down too. Good Lord, now there's clean to do until the next Advent, like his mother would have said. I'll go get a rag. Stay here and don't ruin what's left of the kitchen while I'm gone. The cat watched him go with a skeptical look.
Aren't you the one who's been causing all the trouble so far?
When he returned with the bucket, the cat was gone. In the kitchen, something exciting is happening. Take. You'll need a blade.
Did you take the pills?
Scratch out the entrails. The Egyptians widely used honey for embalming and preserving food. Later, their recipes were adopted by the Greeks.
Also add a teaspoon of apricot jam, a walnut, and a little cinnamon.
Before baking, put a teaspoon of butter on top of. Microwave for 5 to 7 minutes at full power. Don't listen to them scream. Bon appetit!
「とある雨の夜に見知らぬきれいな人が玄関先に現れた。君は